In the Jesus movement of the 1960s and 70s, the one-way sign, the index finger held high, became a popular icon. One-way bumper stickers and lapel pins were everywhere, and the one-way slogan pretty much became the identifying catchphrase of all evangelicalism. Evangelicalism in those days was an extremely diverse movement. In some ways, it was even more eclectic than it is today. It encompassed everything from Jesus people, who were an integral part of the era's youth culture, to straight-line fundamentalists, who scorned everything contemporary. But all of them at least had one important thing in common. They knew that Jesus Christ is the only way to heaven. One way seemed an unshakable belief that all evangelicals shared. The early church exemplified the same exclusivity of Christ. Jesus himself stated definitely, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me." John 14:6. He is saying with crystal clarity, "I am the only way to God." He made the same point early in John 10, "Truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. If anyone enters through me, he will be saved, and will go in and out and find pasture." Jesus is the only door, the only pathway to God. By the time the events of the book of Acts were unfolding, Christianity actually became known as the Way. This is because the message preached was an exclusive message. F. Bruce explains, quote, "He, Jesus, is in fact the only way by which men and women may come to the Father. There is no other way. If this seems offensively exclusive, let it be borne in mind that the one who makes the claim is the incarnate Word, the revealer of the Father. If God has no avenue of communication with mankind apart from His Word, mankind has no avenue of approach to God apart from that same Word, who became flesh and dwelt among us in order to supply such an avenue of approach." End quote. Paul followed this example by preaching the exclusive message of Christ crucified, knowing that the message was a stumbling block to the religious Jews and foolishness to the philosophical Greeks. 1 Corinthians 1:23. Peter likewise proclaimed, "There is salvation in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven that has been given among men by which we must be saved." Acts 4:12. No Christ, no gospel, no salvation. We need to recover that apostolic boldness. We need to remember that sinners are not won by clever public relations or the power of earthly persuasion. The gospel, an inherently exclusive message, is the power of God unto salvation. Yet by the looks of it, evangelicals' biggest fear is disharmony with the world. I believe this is because church leaders, in their desperate quest to be relevant and fashionable, have actually failed to see where the contemporary world is going and why. It is ironic that so many who are downplaying the exclusivity of Christ are doing it because they believe it is a barrier to relevance. Actually, Christianity is not relevant at all if it is merely one of many possible paths to God. The relevance of the gospel has always been its absolute exclusivity. Christ alone has atoned for sin, and therefore Christ alone can reconcile sinners who believe in Him alone to God. We must resist the tendency to be absorbed into the fads and fashions of worldly thought. We need to emphasize, not downplay, what makes Christianity unique. And in order to do that effectively, we need to have a better grasp of how worldly thought is threatening sound doctrine in the church. We must be able to point out just where the narrow way diverges from the broad way. Now is not the time to make friends with the world. It is certainly no time to capitulate the worldly cries for pluralism or inclusivism. Unless we recover our conviction that Christ is the only way to heaven, the evangelical movement will grow only increasingly weak and irrelevant. God bless.